Welcome everyone to our Coping Through the Holidays webinar by the Supportive Services team at St. Joseph's Hospice. My name is Lisa Adams and I am the Living Life Well Program Coordinator at Hospice. And you'll soon be meeting Kayla Slagers, who is the Supportive Services Coordinator, who will be delivering our webinar today. Just a reminder that you are all on mute and your cameras are not on as well. And you can use the chat box at any time to answer any questions that you have throughout the webinar. And we will try to address these at the end of our webinar today. We are also recording this webinar so that you may be able to share it with others or watch it at a later time. And the recording of the webinar can be found on our Hospice YouTube channel within a week or so. The handouts and the holiday resource packages were sent out to each of you yesterday, I believe. If you have not received them, please connect with us and we will give you our extension or our contact information at the end of the webinar today. So today we will be talking about grieving over the holiday season, what to expect, and we'll be sharing with you some strategies and some activities during our time together today. So at this time, I will hand it over to Kayla Slagers.
Thank you, Lisa, and hello everyone. My name is Kayla Slagers and I'm the Supportive Services Coordinator at St. Joseph's Hospice. And like Lisa mentioned, I'll be guiding us through our presentation today. So I just want to take a minute to acknowledge that we understand that most of you are here today because you have all lost someone and or you are supporting someone that is grieving. And we recognize that this time of year, any holidays can definitely be a challenging time for those that are grieving, or whether it be another holiday. So we just hope that today is an opportunity to hold space for you and your grief and to acknowledge that this may bring some emotions forward. It may be triggering. This is to be expected, so please do what you need to take the time to take care of yourself in these moments. And like Lisa said, we will share our contact information with you afterwards. So if you are interested in any further support, we will be available. So I'm just going to start by going over what we will be covering today. So we're going to talk a little bit about some Grief 101, grief and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, grief during the holiday seasons. We're going to talk about caring for yourself, taking care and supporting children and youth during the holidays, the importance of rituals, some meaningful remembrance ideas and activities. We're going to talk about managing expectations during COVID-19 and some support strategies. We're going to talk about a holiday plan and some services that are available through the hospice. So what is grief? So when someone you love dies, grieving can be done through a multitude of ways. And often we experience grief in ways that we never expected. Grief is a very natural and normal response to loss. And in fact, grief doesn't just occur when we lost someone to a death. Grief can also occur when there's been any significant loss in our lives. So it could be loss of things, loss of relationships, so living people, financial or job security, loss of ability. So there's many different ways or different things that we may grieve. Of course, today's kind of focus is talking about grief after someone has died. But just knowing that grief is a natural response to any type of loss, whereas when we're talking about bereavement, that is a time that's specific to the period after a death. And mourning is the expression of grief outwardly. So again, mourning may also be something that isn't death specific. So we know that grief can affect us physically, emotionally, socially, psychologically, spiritually. It's different for everyone. So some examples of experiencing grief physically may be, often we hear that people experience fatigue. So they're very tired, they're very worn down. We often can compare grief to like running a marathon. We can feel very beat because we are, it's having an effect on our whole bodies, our whole selves. Loss of appetite, maybe body aches, maybe chronic symptoms may manifest, so lots of different ranges. Emotionally, we may experience, of course, a whole range of emotions. So often we talk about shock after a death, near after a death, maybe numbness, fear, anger, sadness, disbelief, maybe regrets, guilt, and these feelings may all come up or change, of course, depending on where you're at in your grief. We may re-grieve these feelings too from time to time. Socially, we may experience loss of identity, self-identity. It may impact your social network, maybe your social supports. Perhaps there's people in your lives that have really stepped up and been a strong support to you during this time, and perhaps there may be people that haven't been. So it can really impact how and who we see those people in our lives as well in those relationships. Maybe increase in loneliness, isolation, or perhaps you really felt a really strong support around you too. So psychologically, another one that we don't always right away recognize or think of as grief, but psychologically, we may feel very confused. We might feel almost like a grief fog has came over us, and everything just kind of is passing by us, or time is passing very fast or very slow. We experience forgetfulness, trouble focusing maybe at work or on any task at all, very distracted. And then spiritually, so we know that often when someone very close to us has died, we can really start to really question or think about our lives, our beliefs, our values around us in different ways. Sometimes that questioning can bring us comfort, and sometimes it can also challenge our beliefs. So you may feel, closer or connected to a higher power of your belief system, or again, it may be challenged. It may feel a little bit more distant as you process some of those thoughts and feelings of grief. So it is quite normal to re-examine a lot of our lives in every way when we are grieving. So of course, we want to just touch on grief and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this time, this past year almost, has definitely been a time of uncertainty, very much unknown, very many unknowns, which can really generate lots of feelings of anxiety and fear. And this can really lead to additional emotional distress. And when that's coupled with a death in our lives, those feelings of grief can become even more pronounced. So often, so many of us right now in this world are feeling threatened. We're feeling that our assumptions of the world have been shattered. And that can also really lead to those feelings of anxiousness or helplessness, because we want to feel safe. We're human. We want to feel capable. We want to feel in control. And right now, so much of that has been taken away from us. There is so much unknown. So we know that for many of you that are on this webinar likely have experienced the death of a loved one, but as well as many other losses over this past year. So, many of us have experienced loss of routine, loss of ability to access maybe coping strategies or people, supports in our lives. Perhaps, a main support for you was going to the gym or visiting friends and family and being surrounded by people, and perhaps that's been taken away from you, making that grief really difficult, much more difficult. Many miss social gatherings or celebrations. These are all things that bring us hope. They bring us comfort, joy, connection, purpose, and they also allow us opportunity to commemorate our loved ones, right? To talk about stories and memories. So things like funerals or celebrations of life may have been missed or canceled altogether. You may be feeling an increase of isolation and loneliness. Grief can feel very alone, like we said, even when we're not in a pandemic, right? And now additionally, there's all these physical restrictions. So perhaps, you haven't been able to see family or friends that live, on the other side of the world or the side of the country, or perhaps even in Sarnia Lambton. But because of the COVID-19, it makes it very difficult, and we aren't able to see our loved ones. We're all missing that human contact and that connection, even face to face, right? If you've been grieving someone someone that has died over the past 9 months, there may be additional feelings that have come up. Perhaps you haven't been able to spend or you weren't able to spend time with your loved one before they died, perhaps be with them at the time of death or even afterwards. And so this can cause lots of other new feelings as well, feelings of guilt, resentment, anger, sadness that you couldn't be with them. So all definitely, complicating factors in your grief as well. And on top of everything that I've mentioned, some of us are experiencing, job security, loss of just life events that maybe have been postponed, perhaps health, right? Our own health or others, or even just that worry around our health and our security in our assumptive worlds. So lots of loss, lots of grief, death and non-death related in this year. So we love looking at this picture because so often many of us have heard about, the stages of grief by Kubler-Ross, and what we know to be more true is that grief is not actually a linear process. So although many of us may experience each of those 5 stages of grief, it's not necessarily true for everyone, and you definitely probably won't experience those feelings in that particular order. So the picture on the left, the stages of grief, I think it's your left, it's my left, one that looks like this, is not really an accurate representation of what those feelings might go through and the journey that you may have. It's more realistic that the picture on the right is what your grief may look like. So we experience all different, as I said, feelings, stages, experiences throughout our grief journey. And there can be, stressors or barriers along that grief journey such as the pandemic, that add to this kind of roller coaster. And I know this picture on the right looks a little bit more overwhelming, and that's because grief can feel very overwhelming. We wish that it was as easy and predictable to say, you're going to experience this, and then this, and then this is what you're going to do. But unfortunately, that's not the case with grief. Grief is a very unique experience, and it's very personal. So just know if you feel like your grief has been like the picture on the right, that's normal, and that's to be expected. You're not crazy. You're not going crazy. So often I hear people say, I feel like I'm going crazy. And that often what grief can feel like. So just to validate what your experience may feel like. So you may be wondering, how do we do grief then? How do we go about grief? What is, the right way to grieve? And we're here to say there isn't really a right or wrong way to grieve. Like we said, it's a very unique experience for everyone. Grief is something that ebbs and flows. So grief is a continuum of experiences and expressions that we all go through. And the ultimate goal is to find a way to integrate grief and loss and our loved ones into our present lives, which we know has changed, right? When someone in our life that is special to us dies, our lives and who we are changes. So we tend to kind of swing back and forth, finding respite from our grief from time to time. It's okay to have distraction or to take a break from the heaviness of grief, as long as we're not dissociating ourselves from grief for too long, because it will catch up to us. So there are 2 types of activities that we tend to ebb and flow into when we are grieving. So there's the loss-oriented tasks, and these are things that make us think about our loved ones. We have thoughts and feelings of grief. So, maybe that sadness, it could be pain, it could be, reminiscing on memories, it could be really missing our loved one, working on that continued relationship with them. And then there's on the other continuum is the restoration oriented tasks. So this is things that we're doing to, still continue on with our daily life, potentially distracting you from your grief a little bit, but doing things that allow you a small break from that pain of grief. So, going to work, cleaning your house, maybe it's writing cards, maybe it's arranging, what you're going to do, for the holidays. Maybe it's exercising. It's behaviors that offer restoration and normalcy in your life. Okay, it's finding a balance between these 2 is what we really always encourage. So both are very healthy and normal ways of coping with grief. And we want you to know that this is a way of how we're adapting to this new world, this new grief that is in our lives. So I'm going to read a quote here, and it says, "Grief is like a snowflake. Sometimes it comes one flake at a time. Other times it is like a blizzard. It melts away, but it always comes back. Just as each snowflake is unique, each person experiences grief in their own unique way." So this is kind of sums up and is very related to, I guess, this time of year, especially this week with our snowflakes. We can relate grief to a snowflake in that everyone's grief is as unique to that experience, to that loss that you are having, right? So often we can be very surprised, like I said, about the duration of our grief, what the intensity of our grief responses. And sometimes we're surprised that our grief is experienced differently for each loss that we might have, right? So you may have experienced multiple people in your lives, and each time that grief may feel very unique. It might feel very different because that loss and that person, relationship you had with that person was also very unique and very special. So I'm going to, we're going to just kind of switch gears a little bit and talking about, so what makes the holidays such a difficult time while we're grieving? So even for, individuals or families that haven't experienced a recent loss, there can be lots of mixed emotions or feelings that come with the holidays. The holidays can be very joyous, but they can also be very stressful. It can be really nice to connect with family and friends and loved ones, but conflicts may also resurface, right? So some people have really wonderful memories of the holidays. Some people have very painful memories of the holidays. So adding grief to the mix can be exhausting. It can be overwhelming. And you may at this time feel like you want to avoid the holidays altogether. So that is a very normal sometimes feeling, especially some of those first holidays. We're not sure how to approach them, or we're not sure what to expect, or if we even have the energy or the capacity to want to engage in them. Often with the holidays, there's this requirement to be cheerful, right? It's a lovely time, happy holidays. There's lots of shoulds. I should be enjoying this time with my family and friends. I should send out Christmas cards. I should make that big meal, and I should buy gifts for everyone or give back. So there's gonna be lots of pressure and expectations that we put on ourselves, but also expectations that you may have from your family or from your friends, or maybe from your kids, right? And so, often people they're not meaning to put that expectation on you. Perhaps they're not recognizing, how deep your grief is or how painful it is for you right now to be cheerful, to put that smile on, to get in the holiday spirit, right? Grief can really take a toll on our mind and body, like I said, in ways that we can't even, predict. So just know that if you don't have the energy to fulfill all the expectations that you usually have, or that those people have for you, that's okay. Okay, and we're hoping to help you navigate some of that today. On top of all the shoulds and traditions, there can be lots of decisions to be made, right? Lots of decisions that we want to fulfill in order to fulfill some of those expectations. And perhaps it's following old traditions. Perhaps it's doing new traditions. For example, a family member may want to have, a favorite dish, or the same tradition of a meal that you usually have at Christmas time, or another holiday that you celebrate. Or perhaps it's a meal that your person that has died really enjoyed, and your family really wants to do that. They want to honor the person that has died and recreate that tradition or continue that tradition. But maybe for you, you're really not feeling like doing that. Maybe it's really difficult for you to even wrap your head around wanting to do that. So that's normal, right? To have kind of different expectations or different meanings of wanting to do things, right? We all grieve differently. Perhaps you have children and they're really excited about the holidays, and you're just having a hard time even decorating or even talking about it, right? But you feel like you should. So all those shoulds and then all those decisions that you need to make can make it very, very difficult. A lot of big things to decide on. And then on top of that, there's always lots of different social exchanges of, Merry Christmas, like I said, Happy Holidays. We're so glad that we can be together with the whole family. These are lots of plateau things that we hear over and over again. And those can be triggering, and it can be hard to know how to respond. So you'll hear us say over and over again, the best thing you can do for yourself is to be prepared, make up a plan of how you're going to respond, and what you're going to try to do over the holiday season. So when we're a bit more prepared, it can help us cope a little bit more and know how to respond, right? So if, for example, you're constantly hearing someone say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, or how are you? You might want to come up with a response that you can have. It doesn't just feel like you're saying, bah humbug, right? You maybe can say thank you, right? Instead of even exchanging that back, you can say thank you for the holiday greetings. Perhaps it's a friend or family asking, how are you doing? And you don't really feel like talking about it. Maybe just let them know that, right? Say, this year's really hard for me. I'm really struggling right now, but I don't feel like talking about it today. Maybe another time, right? Maybe we can go for coffee another time, but thank you. So just having a prepared response of what you can say or do, so it doesn't feel like you're, bringing people down, or just you're being more compassionate with yourself too, and responding to ways that feel more natural. And then we talk about the ambush of grief bursts. So adults, children, we all experience grief bursts, and these are strong emotions or responses of grief that can come on out of nowhere. They can be really, really intense. They can last a short time. Often, sometimes they can last a long time, but often they are really strong reminders of the loss or of your person. And over the holidays, they can be triggered really, really easily, especially if the holidays were something that you or do like to celebrate as a family or with your loved ones, and we're constantly reminded about that joyfulness or time together. But really, there's this hole in your life right now, or there's this gap in the holiday season, right? So. And then, like we said, on top of all that, on top of regular grieving, this year is particularly different and difficult for nearly everyone, right? Especially those that are grieving. This pandemic has added so many more stressors and fears, unknowns to our lives, and we are all experiencing so much change and having to find new ways to celebrate and connect over the holidays with family, friends, and carry through traditions if that's what you're wanting to do. So it can feel very scary, it can feel very lonely, it can feel very overwhelming. And when we are missing our loved ones, that additional support and coping, mechanism is also not there. So I'm going to read a poem, or I guess a bit more of a story, and it's about grief, and it explains grief bursts very nicely. So it's called Waves of Grief. Okay, so and this was brought to our attention by a friend who had lost their son, and we think that's a very nice poem to relay what grief and grief bursts feel like and what it can feel like over the holidays and over time. So I'm old, and what that means is that I've survived so far, and a lot of people I've known and loved did not. I've lost friends, best friends, acquaintances, coworkers, grandparents, mom, relatives, teachers, mentors, students, neighbors, and a host of other folks. I have no children, and I can't imagine the pain it must be to lose a child. But here's my 2 cents. I wish I could say you get used to people dying. I never did, and I don't want to. It tears a hole through me whenever somebody I love dies, no matter the circumstances. But I don't want it to not matter. I don't want it to be something that just passes. My scars are a testament to the love and the relationship that I had for that person. Had for and with that person. And if the scar is deep, so was the love, so be it. Scars are a testament to life. Scars are a testament that I can love deeply and live deeply and be cut or even gouged, and that I can heal and continue to live and continue to love. And the scar tissue is stronger than the original flesh ever was. Scars are a testament of life. Scars are only ugly to people who can't see. As for grief, you'll find it comes in waves. When the ship is first wrecked, you're drowning with wreckage all around you. Everything floating around you reminds you of the beauty and the magnificence of the ship that was and is no more. And all you can do is float. You find some piece of the wreckage and you hang on for a while. Maybe it's some physical thing. Maybe it's a happy memory or a photograph. Maybe it's a person who is floating. For a while, all you can do is float and stay alive. In the beginning, the waves are 100 feet tall and crash over you without mercy. They come 10 seconds apart and they don't even give you time to catch your breath. All you can do is hang on and float. After a while, maybe weeks, maybe months, you'll find the waves are still 100 feet tall, but then they become further apart. When they come, they still crash over you and wipe you out. But in between, you can breathe, you can function. You never know what's going to trigger the grief. It may be a song, a picture, a street intersection, the smell of a cup of coffee. It can be just about anything, and the wave comes crashing. But in between waves, there is life. Somewhere down the line, and it's different for everybody, you'll find that the waves are only 80 feet tall or 50 feet tall. And while they still come, they come further apart. You can see them coming, an anniversary, a birthday, or Christmas, a landing on O'Hare. You can see it coming for the most part and prepare yourself. And when it washes over you, you know that somehow you will again come out on the other side. Soaking wet, sputtering, still hanging on to some tiny piece of wreckage, but you will come out. Take it from an old guy, the waves never stop coming, and somehow you don't really want them to. But you learn that you'll survive them, and other waves will come, and you'll survive them too. If you're lucky, you'll have lots of scars from lots of love and lots of shipwrecks. So we can kind of see the holidays as one of those big waves that may be hitting us, and our grief bursts or those waves that are coming over us and catching our breath. Okay, but from this, we want you to know and remember that if this is the first holiday for you, the firsts are always the hardest. But then over the years, as we learn to cope and manage our grief, those holidays become a little bit more, bearable, tolerable. We can handle those waves a little better, and they come a little bit less strong or challenging for us. So next, we want to talk about self-care and things that you can be doing to take care of yourself over the holiday season. So the quote here says, "If your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete." And so this idea is that we cannot properly care for others if we can't care for ourselves first. Offering ourselves self-compassion and self-care means treating ourselves the way we would a grieving friend, treating ourselves with love and kindness and including ourselves first, right? So, we often think of self-care of doing all those things to take care of ourselves, going for manicures or, going for lunch or, getting a massage, and those things are wonderful. But there's lots of other ways that we can also take care of ourselves, right? And so some things to think about is, be realistic with what you can handle. Like we said, we know grief can take a toll on our mind and our body. And so, holidays don't have to be perfect, right? Get rid of some of those shoulds and those expectations, set realistic goals or lower those expectations, and just pace yourself. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not be functioning at 100% right now. Try to give yourself a bit of a break. Be selective in what you choose to do this holiday season, how much you can take on, what you can attend, how many people you can see, who you want to see. It's okay to say no sometimes. It's actually really helpful to say no. No is a form of self-care, and no can be a complete sentence. Ask for help or delegate help. You don't have to do everything yourself, right? Ask family members or friends to help with, planning a get-together, to help decorate, to do some cooking. Quite often family and friends want to help, but they're not sure what to do. So this gives them some purpose as well. And you can be specific in what is actually helpful for you by voicing what you need right now, being honest with yourself and being honest with them. You can try budgeting. We know that often the holidays can also bring financial stress, as well as there can be financial stress after the death of a loved one. So try to budget or try to cut back if you can, and just know that this year might feel different, and what you choose to do this year isn't permanent, right? Be gentle with your body, take care of your physical body, right? Get lots of sleep, drink lots of water, try to limit your alcohol, try to eat healthy, take naps, slow down, okay? Plan ahead. As we said, we're gonna talk a little bit more about planning ahead for the holidays in a second. But create a space to honor your grief and your pain. Do whatever it is that helps, right? Make time for it. Make time to talk, cry, write letters, look at photos, play music, to do all those things. It'll not only help nourish yourself and take care of yourself, but you can include family members or include others too, to let them know that you want to talk about your grief. You want to talk about your person, include them in those conversations. By you opening up that conversation, it lets people know and recognize that need or that want to talk, to want to talk about them or to want to include them in traditions. So try not to ignore your grief or ignore the pain, because we know that that doesn't help us and it doesn't go away. Okay. Try to eliminate unnecessary stress. So you may already be feeling, stress. So try not to overextend yourself. Do what just feels right for you this holiday season. So try to avoid just going along with what plans are set in place or maybe what plans others have made for you. Do what feels right. Excuse me, I need to take a drink here. Do what feels right for you. Excuse me, thank you. Do what feels right for you and discuss what those things are with your loved ones. You can share your plan with them, with a trusted friend, with family members, and you can include them in those conversations too about what is realistic for you and your plans. Okay. And lastly, try to connect with your faith or with your spiritual meaning or community. The holidays can be really a time to find that renewed sense of faith or discover a sense of beliefs. And so that is something that we also always really encourage if that is a part of your life. I'm going to take a minute to talk about supporting children and youth in the holidays. So as always, we want you to talk with your kids. We want you to include them as much as you can in your holiday plans. Include them in topics and talks of grief as well. So when you're talking about your grief and modeling grief, it helps them to also have a language to know that it's a safe place, it's okay to talk about those tough, painful feelings and experiences. Talk about the words die, dead, grief. Talk about what your experience and maybe even model that, right? That really makes it, makes their wide range of feelings feel validated and feel normalized as well. When you are planning ahead, often the holidays can be more difficult. Often that anticipation leading up to the holidays can be more difficult than the actual day themselves. So when we're preparing ourselves, preparing kids, it helps to lower that anxiety, okay? Try to include them in discussions about what they would like to do to commemorate their loved ones, what traditions would they like to keep, what seems important this year, what things we want to get rid of, or what are ways that we can memorialize or include our loved ones that have died in the traditions that we are doing this year. Check in with your kids often. So it can be difficult for kids sometimes to articulate or process some of those really intense feelings of grief. So it can be helpful for an adult to check in, ask them, what was that like for you? Do you have any questions? What are you feeling right now? Just like we can be triggered during the holiday season, so can kids, right? Looking at pictures for them, and they might not necessarily know that all of a sudden they're having this grief burst because they saw this picture of a loved one. So, try to connect some of that grief and those experiences for them and with them, right? We also want to accept and expect that grief bursts for kids too are going to happen during the holidays or any time. But grief bursts for kids can sometimes act or seem more like acting out or behaviors, or they could be big meltdowns from kids. So be prepared for this. Know that it's normal. Know that it's important that we offer them that support in these times, rather than seeing it as just a behavior, or just as acting out. So it could be coming out as their grief bursts. And remember that grieving children are still children. So as much as possible, try to resist the urge to, ignore holidays altogether because it seems so painful. Still allow opportunities for children to celebrate the holidays and to just be a kid without feeling bad or feeling guilty. And that goes for you too. We want you to still enjoy the holidays or enjoy traditions, enjoy things, and not feel guilty about enjoying and having fun as well. So that's really important. So I want to talk about rituals. So rituals are a physical way to honor. They give us something to do or to be a part of. Rituals can kind of give us, rhythm to life. They can create a sense of order. They can connect us to those that have come before us and to those that will come after us. Rituals are things that offer a sense of comfort. They can offer consistency and sense of order and predictability, especially during times of distress and grief and death, right? So we want, again, we're human. We want comfort. We want to have something predictable. We want routine. So engaging in a ritual, as small or as big as you wish to make that, is something that can give us that doing, or especially for our instrumental grievers. So doing something in honor of our loved ones. Rituals can also help us to connect us to something outside of ourselves. So they can often give us, they can give us light, and they can give us meaning or voice to something that we don't always have the words for. So doing something rather than needing to, express it. So for example, in our bereavement groups, we often will light a candle at the beginning and at the end of our group. And this represents that our group has started, that we are coming together. And it also represents our loved ones that are no longer with us. So by lighting that candle, we know that we don't need to say anything. We're doing that ritual to connect us. If you belong to a spiritual or a religious community, you may also find rituals or traditions that can really highlight the significance of your experience and offer you comfort based on your beliefs and your values. So we can't prevent grief from happening, but we can nourish ourselves, physically, spiritually, by doing these things to help us, give us that strength to cope with the impact of our grief. And rituals are so wonderful because they are accessible to all of us. And like I said, they can be as small or as big as we wish them to be. They can be small things that we do on a daily basis. They can be anything that offer us benefit, all the benefits that we've just spoken about, right? So it may be something such as, kissing a picture of the person that has died. Maybe telling them about your day. Maybe it's writing a letter to your loved one. Talking to them out loud, talking to a picture, or it can be lighting a candle in their presence, right? So these are some examples. We're going to talk some more about some examples in a second. We did want to just mention that, often rituals are significant to, like I said, different cultures or religious values or communities that we have. And another example of a ritual might be a funeral, or, sitting Shiva, or, engaging in an Irish wake. These are all rituals that help us to honor our loved ones. They help us to have an opportunity to say goodbye to our loved one, to honor them, and to come together with our family and friends to remember. And right now, during the pandemic, it is extra difficult to be planning and having these rituals, especially a big funeral or a service, in ways that maybe you traditionally do. We all have needed to modify almost everything that we do, but definitely modifying what these funerals or services look like. And, maybe it's having a very small private gathering, or doing something over video conferencing for family members at, a bit of distance, or to include everyone, or maybe you're planning something at a later date. These are just some examples of ways that we can try to be creative in that we're still doing a ritual, right? Having a service, having a chance to say goodbye, doing something for closure really help us in that grief process. So we encourage you, even during these difficult times of the pandemic, to try to engage in a ritual or plan for something that maybe you can do in the future. So just creating that opportunity. So some more like specific activities or examples of rituals or just other meaningful remembrance activities that you can be doing that, you know, again, may engage in tradition, or maybe it's a new ritual or a new thing that you want to start. But really what we want to focus on here is being able to carry on someone's legacy, to remember them, to commemorate them, right? So you'll see in some of the pictures here are some examples of things that you may do with your family or individually. So you'll see there's a picture of an ornament. So perhaps it's creating an ornament with maybe a quote, maybe a saying, maybe a story. You could also make ornaments, I think, with like pictures on them if you get them custom made, or you know, even just taping or gluing a picture on an ornament, right? Having that in the tree. There's lots of different, it doesn't have to necessarily be an ornament ball, right? It can be another object or another type of, you know, decor or memento that incorporates something that is meaningful to your grief, or something that honors your loved one. So the ornament is just an example. Perhaps it's sharing a favorite meal, or, you know, listening to a favorite song or a movie that your loved one loved, or maybe that you did together. Perhaps you're making a donation or doing something, giving back, volunteering somewhere that was important to your loved one, or something that you guys did together as a family and you want to continue that legacy. We have the pictures on the bottom. So looking at pictures, maybe it's creating a scrapbook, creating a memory book, or even just looking at photos, right? Looking at videos. These are all things that can spark conversations, happy memories that you had together. And, you know, if you are getting together with family or friends, maybe it's encouraging everyone to bring a favorite picture, to bring a favorite memory or a story to have. So really just opening up those opportunities again for discussion and sharing these stories that are so often brought up during holidays. And the picture on the left is, of course, like I said, a meal. Maybe it's creating a meal or having something together. But this also could be an example of a spirit plate. So a spirit plate is a native ceremony and a ritual that you know, people, they put often in, you know, different Indigenous communities, or it could be for other part of other cultures. But you create a plate of a meal that you are having, and it's left out for spirits to receive that nourishment and gratitude. And so, you know, you can, whether it's, you know, putting it out on your doorstep and, you know, animals get to it, whoever enjoys it, it's something that you can do to honor your loved one and include them in that. So this is just another example. So some other ideas, you know, it could be, you know, doing a tradition or doing an activity that your loved one once enjoyed. Maybe it's going ice skating, you know, making a snowman. There's lots of different memorial things that you can make as well, you know, memory pillows, quilts. So again, just some other ideas. And there's lots of other ideas and examples in the Coping Through the Holidays resource package that we did send out to you as well. So lots of other practical ideas. Here are just a few other examples that you can be doing with children or as a family. So, you know, the gingerbread house, this is an activity that we always facilitate at our family event. So, you know, maybe it's creating a gingerbread house together, decorating it, but then you can write letters to your loved one that has died, or write special memories and put them inside the gingerbread house. And then you can decorate it in a loving way. So it's a fun way to continue that conversation about the person that has died with children, and doing it in a fun activity. Or you can be making gingerbread men cookies. You can always, or woman gingerbread cookies, sorry. You can be making Christmas cards, writing Christmas letters. Here's another example of another ornament. So it's drawing a picture right on it. This is just a plastic ornament that you can buy at the, you know, the dollar store or Walmart with markers, right? You can also fill it with different objects, or the kids can fill it with different, you know, craft materials, and you can hang it somewhere special. You can also encourage children or yourselves to, you know, make an altar or a special area with, you know, photos or mementos of things that were meaningful or are meaningful to you and your loved ones. There's also a memory lantern here. So again, this is another unique way of being able to light a candle with your kids. So there is just a little tea light inside of a mason jar. And then the kids can decorate that mason jar, add colors, or whatever, maybe pictures on the jars that honor their person. So just another creative activity. And so we wanted to just touch on, managing some of these expectations around traditions and things that you're doing during COVID-19. So first of all, we just wanted to reiterate that acknowledging that this holiday season will be different. It may feel different than other years for many different reasons. Acknowledging that is huge, right? It's the first thing that we can do for ourselves. We talked about making decisions ahead of yourself, ahead of time for yourself, and sharing these plans with family and friends, being prepared about what the holidays or get-togethers are going to look like for you. Giving yourself permission to cut back this year, especially when we are feeling a bit more limited and with what we can do. So try to just abide by what your comfort level is, right? Regarding, social gatherings and activities, depending on where you're at, what your family's comfort is. We know that, again, we're very limited in how many people we can be or should be seeing, what activities we can be doing. So perhaps it's, getting creative. So on the side there, we have some examples of other ways that you can consider connecting with your loved ones, right? So, you can enjoy a catered meal together from the comfort of your own home. You could all make a meal and enjoy it over, Skype or Zoom or something together. So still having that time together, enjoying a meal together, or enjoying a ritual or a tradition that you do. Perhaps you do it in the comfort, like I said, of your own homes, separately, but together, thanks to technology. Perhaps you're, visiting a place of memory, outside. It's a little bit safer to do things outside. So if that's an option to you, maybe you're getting cozy and cozying up outdoors. Maybe it's sending letters or greeting cards or emails and connecting with people that way. Maybe this is a new thing for you. Maybe, cards aren't new for you, or maybe this is something that you can do just to, connect with others in a different way this year. Or creating memory books, right? I love this idea of, there's lots of different memory book websites that you can do, that you can make online. So you can have everyone, share memories or stories together and combine them together on an online website. You can have them dropped off, you can put them together in a memory book, and you can always share that or pass it along to family members too. So. There we go. So last time we talked about planning ahead. So I just wanted to reiterate this idea of a holiday plan. Okay, so we encourage everyone always to, like I said, plan ahead for the holidays. There's an example of a holiday plan in that resource package that we sent out yesterday. And again, if you didn't get this, we'll make sure that you do get a copy of it, or please connect with us if you haven't gotten it. There's lots of great activities and resources in this package. And so there's a blank holiday plan, but I have filled one in here just to give you guys some ideas of things that you can be thinking about when you're planning ahead. So everything from food, decorations, events, parties, family gatherings, different traditions and rituals, what you want to do about gifts, support, who are your supports, where can you reach out for support, and having an escape plan. So these are just different kind of categories of things to keep in mind when you are making a plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to take care of yourself this year. Knowing that, like we said, some traditions, some of these things you may want to keep the same. Some things you may forget about this year, or not forget about, but just put on hold, choose not to do them this year. Or there might be new traditions or new plans that you want to put in place for this year too. So this is a great activity, a great resource to do together as a family. You can include your kids in it. And this is something that we, like I said, encourage you to share with your family or with your friends, so that expectations are clear about what you have put out as a plan for your family or for yourself. This helps us communicate that a little bit more, and then that way, your expectations are clear too. Yeah, the last thing, the escape plan. The escape plan is always a big one we like to mention. Having an escape plan if you are planning on doing any holiday get-togethers or gatherings. You may decide you want to go give it a try, but you may feel that it's too much or it's overwhelming, or that you need, you want to leave early or take a break. So having a backup plan, whether it be, having a code word that you're going to tell someone that you just need to step outside for 10 minutes, or, you need to go let the dog out. Maybe you don't, but maybe that's your excuse to go home because it's just feeling like it's too much or you've had enough for the day. So always having kind of an escape plan and sharing that with someone that you trust is really important. So I think that concludes our presentation. So Lisa's gonna go through the next couple of slides with you.
Thanks, Kayla. So I do notice that we do have a question there in our chat box that we will have time to answer just before we end today. So just wanted to make sure we knew that. So just wanted to share the supportive services that we do have available to the community at this time. And we are offering a number of services that are online or by telephone. And so we have saved a limited number of appointments are reserved for people who cannot have, do not have access online or by telephone, and we've saved some in-person appointments as well for that. So we are offering counseling, short-term counseling services for those who have life-limiting illnesses and those who are caring for them, as well as those who are grieving the loss of a significant person in their life. We are also holding bereavement support groups in both in-person and online right now for adults who are grieving the death of a loved one. And we also have volunteer telephone support for those who are living with life-limiting illnesses and those who are caring for someone with a life-limiting illness. So that's volunteer one-on-one support and companionship over the phone. And just our supportive services contact information is there for you, our phone number and our email if you have any questions for us after today. And our references that we used in case anyone wants to look into things a little bit further. So thank you for everyone for attending today's webinar. Thank you, Kayla, for all your valuable information. And now we'll just move to some of the questions that we have here. Just going to go up and read our first question. Do you want me to read it, Kayla, and then sure, we can go ahead? Okay. This question, our son was killed December 8th, 2018. We haven't returned to any family traditions yet, but because it's a painful time for us. We've heard of people putting up a stocking for their loved ones. And we're wondering, what do you put in the stocking? What do you do with the stuff afterwards?
Okay. Yeah, and I'm very sorry to hear about your son. That is, I think, a very unique, a very special way that we can honor our child or our person in our family that has died. It's a great question. And I think the things that you put in that stocking would definitely be very unique, right? Perhaps it's, again, if you're a family or you have kids, perhaps it's collecting mementos or items or things that remind you of your son, right? Maybe it's things that he loved or enjoyed. It could be things that you have around the house. It could be something that, maybe your family can also include or, have around the house as, again, a memento afterwards. Perhaps it's, pictures. Perhaps maybe you make pictures or cards to honor and to give to your son, right? To put in that stocking. I think that can be really unique. And what you do afterwards with that, like I said, maybe it's something that you keep in a memory box out of, something to cherish. Maybe there are things that you maybe you donate them afterwards to a charity or somewhere or to someone that may benefit from that, right? Maybe it's doing that honor of creating that stocking for your son, if that's what you wish to do, and then being able to still contribute or give that to someone afterwards. It's something that you don't want to keep. Those are just some thoughts. I haven't done a stocking. I actually haven't heard or discussed this with anyone before, doing the stocking idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it's similar to creating a gift or creating a memory book or creating or doing something in honor of our loved ones that others can also take part in. Like Lisa, I don't know if you have anything to add or if you've heard of the stocking idea.
Yeah, just in terms of, you could add what gifts they've given to your life, maybe the impact that they had on your life. You can share maybe humorous things that happened with your loved one. And this could be a new tradition that you, in Christmases to come, that you read out some of those things that you've written before as well.
Yeah. I hope that helps. Yeah. Other questions?
I'm just looking here. Just a comment that I love the poem that was shared. Would it be possible to get it sent to us by email? Also, I really appreciate that you mentioned the spirit plate. I forgot about that, and we'll use that for my loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely pass out that or share that poem because I know it's not in your handout. So the Waves of Grief poem, yes, we can send that out as an extra resource to everyone afterwards. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. I don't think we have, doesn't look like we have any more questions. And we're 2 minutes, I think, to 8 o'clock. So we can probably wrap things up.
Yeah, so if there's no other questions, feel free to type them in there quickly if anyone is thinking of anything. But thank you so much for attending, everyone, tonight. We really hope that this was helpful to you and to your family. And like I said, please have a look at that resource package that we had sent out. There's lots of other additional activities of, of self-care, of rituals, of memorial activities, and just lots of other ways to really acknowledge, your grief, or to kind of normalize what you may be going through this holiday season. We know it's a really tough time. So thank you, everyone, so much for being here. And please do not hesitate to reach out to, I will go back to our supportive services email, or give us a call at the Resource Center if you are looking for anything in addition. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.